How's it going, guys? It took me a little bit longer to get these delivered than I wanted, so I'm starting on this late in the day, and maybe I won't get this video out until tomorrow probably, but it's August 2nd, it's about 9:30 at night, and we have our new Threadripper components that just arrived about 15 minutes ago. Like I say, it was a little bit later than I'd hoped that the delivery would come in, but that's okay. So we've got, to start off, we've got our 3960X Threadripper. That is a 24-core, 48-thread CPU. The standard clock is, I believe, 3.6 gigahertz, and it boosts to 4.5. I'll verify that and put it on the screen if I'm wrong. Freaking massive amount of cache, freaking massive amount of PCI Express lanes. I'll get all that on the screen here. But just beastly CPU. We've got the new, well, like I say, I did a video here recently where I did the Titan RTX unboxing, so you guys have already kind of seen that, but that'll be going in this build, of course. I've got 64 gigabytes, of course, Air Dominator Platinum. This is 3200 megahertz. I already had this in the other system, so this will be taking us from dual channel memory to quad channel memory, so that'll really up our memory bandwidth, which is nice. And then we've got over here, we've got our cooler for the CPU, which is a Noctua NHU12S TR4-SP3, which is strictly designed for the TR4, or in this case TRX40 socket, which is like, it won't work on any other CPU cooler. It doesn't even come with mounting hardware for it. It's like you take it right out of the box and throw it on a Threadripper. It has a bigger face plate on the where the copper meets the CPU. I don't know if it's copper. Like, this is nickel plated copper, so excuse me, it's nickel plated copper. But where the surface meets the CPU, it's much larger than on a normal CPU cooler. Like, I had a Corsair H110 or 115i Platinum on my 3950X, and the block on that, in my opinion, is too small. Like, it'd probably work okay, but it's too small for this CPU. Even if you use the mounting bracket, like, the amount of copper that would be making contact with the CPU wouldn't cover the whole thing up. So this is specifically designed to work on Threadripper and nothing else. But that said, it comes with one fan, and they actually recommend that you use two fans to cool a CPU of a certain wattage or higher. These 3960Xs, 3960X, 3970X, and the 3990, I think it's WX, but they all use like up to 280 watts, and that's not even overclocked. And so this cooler isn't quite capable of doing that unless you use two fans on it, and then they said that it should be acceptable. But then even then you really can't overclock much, so I may end up getting something else later in the future, but this should be fine for now. And then I ordered this Chromax. It's just like a plate that goes over the top of the CPU cooler to make it look cooler. I'll show you guys in a minute here when I open it up, but basically it'll improve the appearance of the Noctua cooler, which, I don't know, nickel plated looks okay, but it doesn't really go with anything in my case. And if I want it to be kind of blacked out, then like I say, I got that because it'll cap over the top of it and make it look nicer. I also ordered a couple fans that aren't here yet, but they're like replacements, because Noctua fans, for whatever reason, are always brown. Like, you can, at least that's been their stock and trade for a long time, is they sell brown fans. I don't know why that was the color that they went with. It doesn't really go with anything that I can think of, but that's their thing. But you can get black ones now, and so I ordered a pair of those that'll fit this cooler. And so when those arrive here, those get here Tuesday, I'll get those installed, and that should improve things. But in the meantime, I'll use the one that came with it, and then I'll just throw I don't know, I've got plenty of other fans laying around here. They just won't match, but that's just to start us off. And then finally, we've got this crazy huge box in the center here. It is ridiculous. I don't know what it weighs, but it's heavy. And this is the MSI Creator TRX40 motherboard, which is just, like I say, I don't know what that box weighs, but I guarantee that was the vast majority of what was weighing down the shipment, because it feels like it's probably, I'd say it's like 15 pounds or more. I know there's a bunch that comes in the box, so let's not beat around the bush here. I'll get stuff opened up here and we'll start seeing what we got. Be right back. If you haven't already done so, please click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. Thanks. Alright, just so we can kind of take a look at this bad boy here from the back, but it has Built-in Intel Wi-Fi 6 AX200 onboard Wi-Fi. It has a 10 gig LAN port, which is pretty awesome, and then another, I think, a standard 1 gig Ethernet port. I can't tell from looking at it. Well, we'll find out when we open up the box. It may just have the 10 gig port. I thought it had 2. It says it's Lightning USB 20G, which is, I don't know what they're calling it, Lightning USB, but it's a USB-C. I believe that's Gen 2, but it's a 20 gigs per second transfer speed USB-C port. Pre-install I/O shielding, which is nice. I kind of like that because I don't know how many people have, built a computer without making the same mistake. But basically, like, you go and get everything in there and find that you forgot to put the I/O shield in place, which just really sucks. So luckily, it's built into the board. That's getting to be a pretty common thing, which I really prefer. But so that's something nice to point out. They're pointing out that they've got the MSI Frozer shielding for the M.2 ports. So there's 2, I think, that you can fit in here. We'll have to look and verify, but that's a pretty long shield if it's only got 1. So I bet there's a socket here and a socket there. And then we've got another one that goes vertically up here near the 24-pin 12-volt connector. So that's kind of interesting. Then this is really kind of cool that they'll let you add more NVMe drives. And this, it's like an add-on card that you can plug into any of your expansion PCI Express expansion slots and put. I don't know if it'll take 1 or 2. We'll look at it when we get it out again. But if you wanted to put in more, because I think Threadripper, I think these all have 88 PCI Express Gen 4 lanes on these CPUs, and then the newer ones that are coming out here shortly, the Threadripper Pros, are going to have 128 PCI Express lanes. But for what we're doing, 88 is an insane amount, way more than I need. But that'll let you run like 2 GPUs at full-on 16x, and then you can have a bunch of NVMe drives, using 4 lanes apiece, and not even break a sweat. So very awesome. Here they mention extended heatsink design, so they've got this plate over all the little I/O, VRMs, all this good stuff is covered up with this nice little RGB plate here that reads Creator on it. The usual stuff, DDR4 boost, armor, so like the memory slots all have like reinforcement around them, metal reinforcement. It's got a front USB-C header, which is nice, so I can use my USB-C port on my case, which I already had before on my previous board, but that's cool. And then they've got the little chipset fan on these. All these newer boards seem to pretty much have that from AMD, like the X570 boards all seem to have that, and now we're seeing it here on this TRX40 board. But supports Mystic Light, the usual stuff. Oh, okay. So it does say it supports dual RG. What the hell is it? Well, whatever. Dual LAN ports. I was trying to think of the connector name, but for some reason it's eluding me. It's a R45 connector. Anything else in here of interest? Nope. Let's open the box. Alright, let's see what we got in this bad boy. So this is all like kind of accessories and so forth, but it comes with a lot of different stuff in that regard. So this looks like this is our little, it's like the size of a video card. That's that M.2 card I was talking about. So that's gigantic. It's about the size of a small dedicated GPU. And then over here, we've got a little case badge if you're into that sort of thing. Some kind of a little thumb drive. I think this is actually carries all the drivers and whatnot that comes with it now. Like they just send them to you instead of a CD. You get like a little mini thumb drive, which is kind of neat. And a little pamphlet about their products, that sort of thing. A little thank you card for choosing an MSI product. Register there for warranty, etc. I don't want to forget any kind of free games or anything like that right now with it. Not that this is a gaming product, so maybe not. Comes with all these to label your SATA cables if you're into that sort of thing. I don't usually use that many SATA devices, so probably not that big of a deal, but cool to have it. We've got CPU cooler installation instructions. Now this is, I don't even know why they're including this, because this is not even I mean, this is the Threadripper CPU, and the Threadripper CPU installs in a very specific way. This is an Intel. What the hell is that in this box? Why does it have an Intel 2000 series? Yeah, Threadripper 4 here. There you go. Okay, so they finally get to one that's relevant. It just seems so really weird that they include such a generic thing when this isn't even an Intel board. Here's the manual, which is huge on this thing. Look at this thing. Now, granted, it's going to be in multiple languages as usual, but still, this is about the biggest motherboard manual I've ever seen. Monster. Everything about this thing screams big, which is important to impress people. Alright, got a mystery bag and our Wi-Fi for our motherboard, built-in Wi-Fi. Nice big receiver on that. I probably won't actually use it though. I typically use a LAN cable anymore. I have a switch in my office now that I just ran from my other room because Wi-Fi just seems to be a little bit janky when it comes to certain things in this building. I don't know if there's something interfering with my signal or what, but whatever. Let's see what comes in the bag. Probably a bunch of cables and stuff, I'd guess. Like maybe some zip ties or... Well, I don't know about zip ties. It usually comes with a case and not so much a motherboard. But let's see what we got here. Mystery supplies. Yeah, okay, well. Yeah, no zip ties, but we've got different RGB cables. These are for standard RGB, which I don't know why you would really use those at this point with something modern like this. We've got addressable RGB cables. We've got... This is the Corsair header cable, so I can continue to use RGB with my Corsair fans that are already in the case, which is nice. And then it comes with what looks like several standard SATA cables, which is cool. Although I probably won't need them. I do have one Samsung 2TB QVO F860 SSD in there, so I will probably need one, but that's already hooked up. So, set this off to the side, and let's take a look at the board itself here momentarily. I'm just trying to kind of organize here. Well, actually, let's have a look at this expansion card that came with it. This badass looking crazy thing that looks like you could use it to run Minecraft. Let's see. That's kind of cool looking, man. Comes with some kind of little cable. Oh, it's like you plug it into the hard drive header on the motherboard to do like, it probably has like a little light on it that shows hard drive activity. Check this thing. Okay, so it'll hold 4 drives. Add-in card supports up to PCI Express 4 bandwidth, whereas the transfer speed might be limited by the processor and the chipset. Fair enough. It takes a 6-pin PCI Express power connection. This thing is just like having it just looks like a video card, except for there's no I/O because it doesn't connect to a monitor. But that is really cool. Check that out, man. 4. However, I'll probably just use the ones on the motherboard itself. I've only got 2 NVMe drives, but this would let you probably do all kinds of RAID configurations and so forth. Like if you wanted to do, like a RAID stripe with 4 of these and get some kind of insane bandwidth out of it, that'd be kind of fun. But that'd be a lot of money, right? You know, you're talking, even if you got 4 1TB drives, you're talking, you know, you're spending probably $500 or something for 4 drives. Let's see. And Gen 4 drives are that much more expensive, so, well, there you go. But that's a pretty cool little, it says Gen 4 on it, but a nice big fan on there. You figure NVMe drives do tend to run pretty hot, so for them to put a big fan in there like that, it probably does a fair service to those chips. It probably would be almost worth trying it that way, but I don't know if you can boot from this either. That can be a problem with things like that when you're trying to boot from it as the OS drive, as opposed to just doing it for expansion storage. Very neat, though. Very cool. Okay, now we'll open the board. I just wanted to have a look at that thing, because that thing is really neat. I don't think I've ever had a board come with something like that before. And in the future, that might be something I do to expand my storage if I really want to have quick access to certain things. It'd be fun to load games on it and just see if they... I don't know, Linus Tech Tips did that video here recently that pretty much showed that like you can't tell the difference even between, you know, like a SATA SSD and an NVMe drive for most activities. So it probably would be a complete waste of time, but it'd just be fun to try it and say that you had like a, you know, like a read-write rate of like 30,000 megabits per second or something stupid. Because why not? Alright, get these things out of the way. Next up, we're going to have a look at this motherboard, because I know it's going to be a beautiful board. from all the images I've seen of it, I think it's real nice looking. Very heavy. This is an extended ATX board, which means it's like wider by a fair amount than a standard motherboard. So you got to have a case that can support that. So wow, this thing is heavy. I mean, this thing is super heavy. This is by far, I mean, whether that means anything to you, you know, whatever, but this is physically the heaviest motherboard I have ever seen. My goodness, it is sturdy. Now, there's a lot of heatsink material in it, so there's that, you know. But just in general, it is a monster. But look at that! Look at the size of the damn CPU socket. Threadrippers are huge. I had one before. I had a 1920X from the first generation. Some of you may or may not have been around watching my channel that long, so if so, great. If not, welcome to the channel. But man, this is a big monster of a board. Hold on a second here. And my gimbal's acting up. Alright, let's see here. Play hard, stay silent, it says. Fair enough. But there's the big old Threadripper socket, TRX40 chipset. This a little bit closer so you guys can see what we're looking at here. Got our I/O, as we talked about. All of our lovely little PCI Express connections seem to have like a nice little armor coating around them, so that's cool. Let me, let's just do this way. So, we've got audio header, rainbow, and standard RGB headers, or like I say RGB and addressable RGB, 12 volt and 5 volt. Got lots of fan headers on here. Some of these I'm actually not sure what they're for, so I could look them up and tell, you know, find out if you guys need me to. But I put a little sticker over the fan, so let's take that off there. Ooh, shiny. A little crap in there. I don't know what that's about. This is definitely, you can see underneath here, there's like that blue film. So I guarantee there's an M.2 socket in here. There's an M.2 socket over here. And then there's more up here, which this has also got a little piece of stuff on it. So we're going to take that up. Well, it doesn't want to come off. It was really on there. Alright. All kinds of SATA connectivity down here. Looks like we've got 6 of those. We've got 2 USB 3.0 headers for, like, if your case had a bunch of 3.0 ports. With the USB-C header. We've got our 12 volt for the motherboard. We've got more 4-pin fan headers. We've got a couple of 8 pins for the CPU power connectors on this thing. And then we've got our CPU and our pump fan connectors up here. And I'm pretty sure, yeah, this is for the Corsair right here. So if you need to connect up like I think it's called a Lightning Node Pro, to connect all your like RGB through your Corsair based fans, which I have a lot of those in my case, and then you can control them through MSI Mystic Light. So we'll see how well that works with this, but it's worked so far on my previous boards pretty well. And we'll take that bad boy off there. Oh my. Alright, well that's the motherboard. Like I say, just about the craziest, gigantic freaking thing I've ever had the pleasure of playing with here. Next up, let's go ahead and get some of these other accessories out, and then I will begin the transfer process of taking out the old AM4 setup and putting in the new TRX40. So, one second. Thought I'd show you guys these Corsair memory modules real quick. They're real nice looking. These have a lot of different lighting scheme options if you're into that sort of thing, and it says Dominator right on there, which is pretty cool. But you can see that you've got all these different LEDs, and it can do different patterns of light that kind of travel up and down in different colors at the same time, that sort of thing, or just have it be shut off if you want. They'd actually look pretty good shut off if you just wanted to do a totally black build, which at some point I kind of wanted to actually do with this thing anyway. In that case, you could just shut them off and it looked pretty good in there. But I like to do this one where it's like a rain pattern. It looks like rain's falling as it like turns on and then off, and etc., etc. As it looks like water is falling, and then as you have several of them in the case at the same time next to each other, it oh, this is reversed, but whatever, you get the idea. So it's like falls, you know, it's just like a cascading effect, and it looks like you got water falling in the case, which is pretty cool. It also kind of looks like if you put it in green, it sort of looks like the Matrix, like the code stuff that used to be in the Matrix movies where they had literal code falling down. But next thing up I think we'll do is we'll get this processor out of the box, because why the heck not? And then we'll move on to the next thing and so on and so forth. So here's the big CPU box. So I'm sorry, it's 3.8 gigahertz base and boost to 4.5. I think I said 3.6 earlier, so I was a little bit wrong. Sorry about that. Using a very sharp knife here. Try not to cut the living crap out of myself. Oh, shake it, baby. That's cool. Comes in like a big, like a big freaking plastic tower for whatever reason. It's kind of neat. And I have to figure out how to open this thing. Looks like you just probably cut that or something, or peel it off or whatever to get access. Gigantic CPU, huge die, and looks like it's got some stuff in here. So it comes with your CPU bracket, which I'll have to see if that Noctua or that Chromax one came with anything. I think this is to adapt an all-in-one. This is like the usual Asetek format where you can take any kind of a standardized all-in-one cooler, modify it with this, and then use it for your Threadripper. But I think in my case, I don't need to do that because I think that my Noctua just basically plugs right into the board. But comes with a nice big sticker if you so desire to put that sort of thing on your case. I typically don't really like stickers on my cases, but to each their own on that. And a little Threadripper sticker on there. Kind of cool to have something like that, though. Maybe put it on my monitor or something. Whatever. You get the idea. And then this is like this little ratchet tool that it comes with. Little hex head or whatever the heck. But basically, once you tighten it up, you've got to use this to tighten down like all the different corners of the CPU socket retention bracket before you put your cooler on it. So that's a required tool, and they supply it for you. So that's nice. So we got our supply tool there. Let's see about getting this thing open, I guess. I hope I'm doing this right, or this is sort of a waste of time. Like that. Okay. Yep, that was it. Just had a little sticker keeping it in place on there. So, it's such an elaborate setup that they gave you with this. I guess that's just to hold that in there. But basically, this is the whole thing here, and it comes in like its own slide rail. How freaking monstrous this thing is! But you slide this into the rail, like there's a retention bracket on the CPU, or the CPU socket of the motherboard slides up like this metal door. You slide it into the door, and then you close the door, and then you ratchet it down again using this tool right here. So I hope that basically covers the general idea, but I'll just leave it setting on that for now until we're ready to play with it. I think it's a big chip. Gotta be very careful with that. That thing costs more than a lot of my computer. I've built whole computers for less than this thing costs, we'll say that. So, next up here, let's have a look at our CPU cooler. Trying to get this thing out of the way. I'm sorry, I'm just wasting time here. Whatever, get this thing out of the way. Close enough. Doesn't gotta be perfect, just needs to get out of the way. So, putting that off to the side, let's look at our Noctua with a bunch of letters and shit cooler. There you go. I'm not going to read the whole thing again. You can see it on the box. But this thing was about 70 bucks, and it came actually pretty highly recommended as one of the best Threadripper air coolers that there are. You can do, of course, an all-in-one, but the ones that I looked at were all from like Enermax, which I thought was sort of cheesy. I mean, they're not really a particularly high-end brand as far as I'm aware. I didn't want to go with one of those. And like I said, the one that I have, that Corsair, I'm quite certain that the water block on it isn't physically large enough to cover that whole CPU die, and I don't think it was really made for that, so I bought some else. There's that ugly brown fan I talked about. Do not know why Noctua does that. All the things you could have done, it's like, just include a black fan, you sons of bitches. But whatever, they can do what they want. Their company. Clearly I bought it, so they must, you know, their reputation must precede them, despite the fact that their stuff is not super aesthetic. So, got that out of the box, and it looks like, I feel like I'm maybe doing something wrong here, but I don't know. It does not want to come off. Okay, there you go. That's the end that it comes off at. Alright. Well, here it comes. So you can see how physically large this base plate is on this thing. Take this off here real quick. Look how nice that sheen is, that nickel plated. But you can see this is strictly made for a Threadripper. There's nothing else that this would even work with. It's so large. And the socket is, like I say, it's pre-set up with these 4 screws to to ratchet it in, and there's nothing else that this could even ever work with. It is strictly for that socket. TR4, so it'll work with the older Threadrippers and the newer ones. It's just that, again, for one that I've bought, they suggest that you get a second fan on there. In fact, they pretty much say it's required because these, again, use like 280 watts, and this thing, with one fan on there, probably ain't gonna do that. And we've got our 4-pin for our fan, and again, I think it comes with another one of these retention clips so you can mount a second fan on it. That's what I read before I ordered it. So yeah, this is our accessory box, and it looks like, again, we've got, in fact, it comes with a couple of them, so in case you break one probably or something, or lose it, or it comes flying off, that sort of thing. It comes with some more of these rubber pads that go around the end to reduce noise. I guess if you get a second fan and it doesn't come with the color that you want, or it doesn't come with these or something, they give you more. Comes with some kind of Allen wrench to tighten down the 4 corners of it on the socket, so that's cool. We'll need that. We've got some Noctua branded thermal grease. Very nice of them to supply that. Looks like you get a little cable extension in here. This so in case your CPU cable can't reach your motherboard header, you get that little extra there. It has a little Noctua case badge, which is apparently in the shape of an owl. I don't think I've ever actually purchased a Noctua product before, so this is my first time, and yeah, sure enough, it's got like a little 3M sticky pad on it, so that's neat. And then we've got what looks like, I'm sure, some sort of instructions / thank you for buying type thing, manual, etc. Shows us how to install our cooler, although I think this one's about as straightforward as humanly possible, frankly, to install, because it's literally, you push it down on it and tighten the thing. But for anyone who's never done it before, doesn't know how thermal grease works and that sort of thing, probably a useful set of instructions to have. So, lastly, I'm going to go ahead and get into this Chromax accessory that I purchased that they stated was compatible with this cooler, which will make it black instead of nickel from the top, so where you can see it in the case, it will look black. In fact, I think it pretty much wraps around the entire thing, so let's have a look here real quick. But that's the cooler from a distance, and then we've got our little Chromax accessory, black accessory cover. So let's get this thing out here and see what we got. But basically, this is pretty straightforward. So this is Chromax by Noctua. It literally is supposed to just go over the top here. So let me see here. It's got some kind of tape or something. Not sure what the point is in that. It's like they've got this plastic around it on here, but it comes off real easy. Oh, it's magnetized on the inside. That's interesting. So this thing can come off. Oops. Ow. Hit my fingernail a little bit. But you can put it back in there, and then it just sticks in place with a magnet. I wonder if that's how it adheres it to this thing as well. Well, you see that the purpose of it is pretty much it just sits on the top and it makes it look pretty. So you can see how you'd be able to view it from the outside. I wonder if it comes with anything that helps it stay in place on there a little bit better. Let me see if there's anything else in the box. No, just a set of instructions, but it doesn't really... okay, well, it does say that there's a steel clip and a fixture, it says. Which, frankly... oh, okay. So there's a little clip that comes attached to the cardboard. And it mentions... oh, the fixture is the thing inside that was magnetized. Okay, so it says you put that on first, and then you can clip that into place, and then you just lay this over top of that, apparently. That's sort of strange. Let's take that back off. So basically it says you take this piece that was inside and you're supposed to put it on here, and you're supposed to clip that into place, it says. Like this, apparently, to keep that from coming off. And then I suppose the magnetization of that saying now that'll stay put. Alright, so that's simple enough. Alright, next up here, I guess, is pretty much getting started on things. I gotta take the existing board and so forth out of the case and then put in the new board, and we'll get going on that here in just a moment. Alright, I've got the PC taken apart, and we've got our RTX Titan sitting out here. We've got our Pioneer 2TB NVMe SSD. We've got our Crucial 1TB NVMe SSD for extra storage. This is our OS drive. This is our additional storage and games. Like I say, I've got a Samsung 2TB QVO or 860 QVO sitting in the case still, but that's disconnected. This is the new board. We're going to get ready to go ahead and get started with that. And the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and install the CPU cooler. Cat's talking to me, sorry. But I took the fan off of it because from the look of things, I don't see how you would physically tighten down these with any fans installed. So I don't even know why they start with a fan installed on it, because again, I don't see that you'd physically be able to. I mean, this is sort of unreachable here. There's like a little notch usually built into the side of these, but I'm not seeing where you could really do that with a fan on there. So I took the fan off, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these two 140mm Fantex fans until my new Noctua fans show up, because at least they're black and they look kind of cool, and they should fit on there. You supposedly can do 140 or 120s on this. It just comes with a 120. So I'm going to go ahead and do that here in a second, but let's go ahead and get started by installing the CPU, followed by installing. Oh, my cat. He's playing with cables over there because I got stuff laying around and he thinks they're toys. But I'll go ahead and get started on this in just a second. Okay, so I had to use the 120mm fans after all, because it turns out that these clips don't work with 140mm fans. I think they must make a larger size, but of course this model didn't come with them because apparently it is designed strictly to work with 120s. Nice thing is you can see that this thing is small enough that, I mean, these fit, and even though this RAM isn't low profile, they're capable of fitting in there. And you can always move them up a little bit too. Like I've got them pretty well centered, but you can scoot them up a little bit and clip them in a little bit higher if it meant that you were able to, and like if it was a problem for clearance with your RAM. But they do fit on there. I got them both hooked up successfully. They both spin nicely. So once my replacement fans come on, was it Tuesday, I can put on some nicer looking stuff. But in the meantime, this is what we got. So actually, this might have been the wrong order to do this in. Let's see. No, that works. Okay. So I'll put that on there. Put a little Chromax cover plate on it. And I mean, it looks pretty nice. It's kind of hard to say how good it'll look, but I think once I get the two black Noctua fans on there, it'll look pretty good. Give you a different view of it here. Like I said, actually, I think once these are both black, nice Noctua fans like that, they'll be real quiet and look real nice, and we can crank the living shit out of them, and it shouldn't make too much noise. But they said, like I say, to dissipate the kind of heat the Threadripper is going to put out, you got to have two fans on this. You got to do push-pull. So this fan needs to blow, this fan needs to pull, and then you'll have an additional fan usually in the back of your case that'll help exhaust a little bit faster. So, and then I'm going to put a couple of bigger 140mm fans above it to exhaust heat off the top of the case. So I mean, it really, hopefully we'll get the heat out of there fast enough. But like I say, these things use up to 280 watts. It's a pretty big amount of power to contend with. So we'll see what we can do here in just a second. But you can see I've got, and I have to do something about this, but like those are kind of blocking the CPU power connections a little bit. I might try just plugging that into the pump fan. It'll probably still work just fine. Might actually run the thing real fast. I don't know. But give me just a second here. I'm going to go ahead and start putting it in the case. Making progress. It's now standing up. That's a pretty good sized cooler, but it should still have clearance when I close the door. But basically now I just got to go ahead and wire everything up. This thing is pretty freaking long though. Like, you've got these little plates on here that you can scoot back and forth in this case, and I'm pretty much having to scoot them as far as they can go to the right to make room for all the cables that got to come out, because the previous board cut off, you know, about there, and so I had more space. But with this one, like I say, it's EATX, and they are E as in extremely ATX, but they're very large. They're very large. So anyways, but you get the idea here. Basically at this point it's just wiring up the board, hooking up all the little headers and goodies, plugging up our CPU, and then reinstalling our graphics card, and at that point theoretically it ought to work, huh? Alright, let's get that done. Alright, you can see we got, I think, everything wired up correctly. This case only has one little connection for the power switch. It doesn't have reset button or anything like that. I swapped out all the fans with non-RGB 140mm fans that I had laying around. They're all Fantex except for one on top is a Corsair fan, but eventually I think I'll replace them all and try to go, like the one in the back has black blades. The ones on the front that came with this case are all white, but I'd like to replace them all with black bladed fans eventually. And I gotta wipe off that got smear on there, but I gotta wipe off the Chromax there. But I want to replace those fans tomorrow. I have some black Noctua fans coming to replace those, and then this thing should be pretty much ready to rock. But the last thing to do will be to put our Titan in there and fire it up and see if it works. God, I hope so. Be right back. Alright, everything's hooked up. Taking bets on whether this thing incinerates itself or doesn't power on at all or won't boot to an OS or any number of things. Let's see if it works. Yeah, I must have plugged in the power correctly. Let's see. The only RGB really at this point should be from the case, and then we've got our Corsair memory, and then the motherboard of course has its big RGB strip there, whatever you want to call that. But in the Titan, we'll say Titan, but it's running. Not sure what it's doing yet. Hopefully it's going to post. Give me a minute here, we'll see if it gets into Windows, and then we'll see what we can do with it. Alright, everything's up and running. It seems to actually be working pretty well. The temperature, as you can see, is kind of all over the place. It's as low as like the high 40s and as high as into the 70s so far, and I haven't really done anything terribly CPU intensive, but just like loading, installing the programs, installing this, that, and the other thing will utilize the CPU for a little bit, and it shoots up into like the 70s. But I mean, again, this is a fairly, for what it is, and I was able to shut off all the lights on this thing pretty much using Mystic Light. So now the only thing that's light up is the word Titan and the little temperature gauge that is constantly updating itself there. But I was able to shut the other lights off, and once I get the black fans on there, it'll be just totally blacked out in there pretty much. Again, I'd like to replace those white bladed fans with some black bladed fans, but I really like how it looks right now. The gold, I don't know, gold and black is cool. It would be kind of cool to get 100% black in there, but I don't really know how I do that at this point. But we're doing all air cooling, and it's actually doing a pretty good job. From what I read, this particular cooler is one of the best coolers for Threadripper that there is. You just got to have 2 fans on it, because again, you're talking about 280 watts on this thing. But like I say, we've got our properly read 24 cores. Memory is running in quad channel, 64 gigs DDR4, and whatnot. And I was going to point out some other thing here. I don't know how many of you guys have been, have used MSI products, but they had a software package called Dragon Center for a long time that would have MSI Mystic Light in it, and you could use it to auto update and pull down driver updates, like go over to support and do live update, and you say that you want to scan, and as you can see, like, there's some drivers that they're suggesting that I pick up but I don't have yet, like Wi-Fi, newer Wi-Fi drivers, that sort of thing. But they have a different version of it for this motherboard, and it's the Creator Center, because this is the Creator motherboard. And so I had to ditch Dragon Center and download this from their website to get Mystic Light to work. The version of Mystic Light that I had from my X570 chipset board, which is about the same age as this one, didn't work with it. Like, it didn't detect the board. It was not doing what you would want it to do. I couldn't change the colors or anything. But now that I've got this, we got Mystic Light access, and we've got some other things. I don't know what the heck True Color does or anything like that, but monitor, you can see like your CPU frequency and how much you're using, which right now I'm basically not using it. Tells you your temperatures. You can do not sure what this does. Oh, that's cool. It pops up a little window you can have out to have out all the time. But anyways, that's what this program pretty much does. Like I say, it replaces Dragon Center for the Creator motherboard. I guess maybe I should give this one benchmark. Maybe I'll run like a Superposition or something like that and see how this does with the Titan and the Threadripper. We'll run a 4K benchmark here and see how it does, and see how hot it gets on the CPU, especially. The GPU I'm not worried about. I mean, it'll get in the 70s, but it won't be that bad. But the CPU, again, we're about to find out just how crazy hot this thing might get. So I'll be back in a minute after we get the results on this. So we had a minimum of 71.25 frames per second, average of 92.68, and a max of 115.12. And this is a 4K with everything at stock speed. And the CPU, I guess it doesn't really tell you what the CPU temperature is. That's too bad. I was kind of hoping to get that information out of it. The GPU maxed out at 74 degrees. CPU, it doesn't say much about in this. I think what I'll do is I'm going to run like a Timespy Extreme benchmark, and then we can get some more information about how hot the CPU is running, and that'll run an actual CPU test. That'll be useful. So go ahead and do that. Alright, so CPU temperature, if we check that out, it capped out at about 84 degrees, which isn't particularly awesome, but that's during the final test, which is just a CPU test. That's all it does, is run the whole thing 100%, ripping on the processor, so it's going to get completely maxed out and run hot. That's still a little bit disconcerting that it's going to get that hot that quick, if it had, you know, stayed pegged out at 100% for, you know, extended period of time, it might have gotten to the 90s. I don't know. That's not terribly awesome. I'll have to play around with the settings in the BIOS and see if the CPU fans can go a little higher. But otherwise, it did pretty well in most of the tests, at least as good as anything else I've got. I want to see real quick here. I'm going to go on the site and compare it to my previous tests to see how it scored and see how it stacked up. So give me 1 minute. So you can see here I've got my comparison sheet up. On the left is the Threadripper, and on the right is the R9 3950X, which is my previous processor. And you can see that the only difference really is in the CPU test. Because the CPU score, it beat it out by like 50%, but everything else is like 0.2% in favor of the 3950X, but basically the same thing across the board. It's almost identical. So the simulation, I don't know why it's doing this with the frickin' focus again, sorry about that. It's like it kind of, I don't know, it flops around, it's weird. But basically, Threadripper tearing it up on the CPU scores as expected, but otherwise pretty much verbatim the same performance as the 3950X. As I mentioned before, the only real reason I did this upgrade is because my 2080 Ti got damaged. I received a refund for that and had the money to do the upgrade because of that refund, and really couldn't spend it anywhere but Amazon. So it seemed like the way to go. Like I said, it's running a little warm, but once I get both those good Noctua fans on there and then I just crank them up, I think it'll be alright. I need to add maybe some more higher quality fans to the case or something, or just play around with things and try to get it to run a little bit cooler. But otherwise, I'm pretty pleased with the way it turned out. Hopefully you guys like the way it went. I got the kitty sitting on my lap here. He's just getting a little back rub. Actually, he's giving me a bath right now. He's weird. He likes to do that. He's kind of like a dog. Silly cat. Alright, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you like the content, please like the video and maybe consider subscribing to the channel. I'm trying to hit that lucky number 1,000 by the end of the year, but I'd be happy if I got there even by like mid next year, frankly. I'm just glad people are watching and enjoying the content. And if you guys have any questions, ask them in the comment section below. But otherwise, I appreciate you guys watching this video. We'll see you guys again all real soon. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon. Bye.